Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach David Bartkey here. Today is Sunday, June the 8th, 2018, 8 p.m. Your weekend dose of happy, and we hope that you're having a great July weekend, great July Sunday night. David and I were just kind of catching up on how our weekend has been going, and David, I was just telling you how yesterday Anne-Marie and Mike, who are two of the contributors to the book we published in May over the Memorial Day weekend, invited us to join them in Middletown, Connecticut for fireworks yesterday in celebration of the country's birth. And we went down there, had a nice picnic. They had a whole group of volunteers for the Buttonwood Theater, the Buttonwood Arts Center, where they do their alternative cultural arts, very popular in town. But all the volunteers were there, and so we got to meet the volunteers and shared some food and had a good time. And then the fireworks come on, and it was good, and really good show, by the way. The show was coming off really good. And then, unfortunately, halfway through, one of the fireworks went off down close to the barge rather than up in the air like it was supposed to, and set the barge on fire. So it kind of ended the show prematurely. God. Let's say we never had a grand finale. The grand finale was this huge fire on the barge that the fireboats are trying to put out, right? Oh, that's why they do it in the middle of water, right? So it's safer that way. But other than that, it was great. We had a good time. So how you doing? How was your weekend?
How long did it take you to realize, no more fireworks?
Oh, it was pretty quick. Well, from the moment when I saw the firework go off about 5 feet above the water, I said, well, that can't be good. So, yeah, it was, it kind of deteriorated from there. I got to tell you, too, I don't quite get this. I mean, I guess that's the nature about what I'm about to say, but when it happened, I don't know how to describe how I felt. I saw what was happening. I knew what was happening. I knew what it added up to. And of course, these days they're all computerized, all the the way that they send the fireworks up and so forth. And you could see that the computerization had basically failed, but there was still some that were lined up to be shot off, and so occasionally one would get shot off and so forth. It was very out of control, kind of what you'd expect with a fire like that. And then later on that night, we're driving home, and as we're driving home, I said to myself, I've had that experience before. Now, I thought back, and I've never been at a fireworks display that I can remember where the fireworks barge caught fire. I can never remember that happening, and yet it felt like deja vu. And I said, why do I feel that? And I can't explain it. I don't know what that's about. But boy, it seemed like a really strong memory. So, I don't know.
Interesting.
Very
I don't
weird.
know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe in a dream, or
I don't know.
Some might say maybe in a past life, or who knows.
But they were like, I was describing how after the thing caught fire and the whole thing starts to fall apart, and there were stray fireworks that were just kind of firing. That's what I was remembering. I don't know how I could possibly remember that. That's just strange. Well, anyway.
That's a deja vu, yes.
Yeah, it is a deja vu. Never really sure what those are, but they are what they are. I wonder what the law of attraction explanation of deja vu is.
Deja vu, like something you've lived before. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not even sure how to begin to approach that question.
I know there's a song called Deja Vu.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the lyrics would help with that. I don't know.
Probably not. So let me get to my question. How was your weekend?
Good. My week was very good. I had a nice weekend. And it was interesting because this week, because of the holiday, this past week, I found myself with some free time. And I guess I'm kind of a doer. Like, my personality is, I like to do. I like to read or write or whatever. And I found myself with a lot of extra free time. And I finally got to the point where I thought to myself, you know what? Just give yourself permission to just enjoy the free time. It was interesting. Like, I had a little bit of a tug of war at first, and then I realized, what am I doing? Like it's okay.
Sometimes we just need downtime.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Like, I was just telling myself, just enjoy it, David. Just, hang out. Do what you want. Watch TV. Play with the dog. Like, whatever it was. So it was kind of a good realization in that moment. And I ended up that's what I did. I just fully enjoyed just having some free time.
It's
It felt good.
one of Louise's favorite things to say is too often we're human doings. We need to learn how to be human beings again.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I think is true.
So
It
it
has
was
a lot of
good.
truth to it.
Yeah, and it kind of reminded me, like, you know what? It's good to have a balance. Like,
Yes.
you know, it's wonderful to have that feeling of getting things accomplished and, you know, checking things off your list of things you want to get done. But then, of course, it's also good to have some of the free time just to enjoy.
Well, I don't know about you. For me, the checklist can actually get old after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get to the point where I just don't even want to have to deal with it anymore. Like, oh, God, another item on the list. Ugh, kill me now.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, but it was good. It was a good little kind of a mini lessons, so to speak, and I enjoyed it. And I also got a quote from Esther Hicks, you know, from Abraham, that I thought was a good one to share. This is the quote.
Okay.
Whatever you're thinking about is literally like planning a future event. When you're worrying, you're planning. When you're appreciating, you're planning. What are you planning? And I thought that was such a great, clear, easy to understand law of attraction premise, you know?
Well, we better get our acts together. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Whatever you're thinking about is like planning a future event.
It's funny.
Wow, I love how it just says it so clearly and so easily, simply.
It's funny that you mentioned that because every once in a while I'll peruse Facebook just to see what's going on, particularly in one of the law of attraction groups. And today there was somebody who posted something that I don't remember exactly what they said, but I'll rephrase it in the G version, right? It was something like what makes you 1,000% annoyed? And of course, people start putting down all these things like my ex and all this other stuff, and I'm thinking, why on earth do you want to focus on that? What's the point?
For sure.
What good thing do you hope is going to come out of focusing on that? Because I don't quite get it. Other than
that was
venting.
A law of attraction group.
Yeah. I mean, venting is the only thing I could come up with, and I'm not even all that in favor of venting. I mean, there are times when it's necessary, but I mean, I have. Well, let's just put it this way. I've actually ended friendships over people who were venters. Because venters are people who believe that their friends have a moral obligation to be the brunt of receiving whatever the venting is. And I don't happen to think that that's a very friendly thing to do. I think that it's much more friendly to learn how to release your anger and frustration and whatever else you're carrying around in other ways other than dumping them on your so-called friends. I mean, because to me, that's not a very friendly thing to do. So that's why I'm not a fan of venting. I mean, if it's me and I've got something I want to let go of, I think I'm just a little bit more straightforward about it. Like, okay, I'm feeling anger. I want to let go of it. And if I have to go outside and, you know, do a dance or, you know, take a walk or ride a bike or whatever it is, you know, just go out and shake it off. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to dump it on my wife. I don't want to dump it on my friends. I don't want to dump it on my family. I mean, that's cruel. Why should they have to suffer the pain that I've been dealing with?
That's interesting. I never thought about that before, but I agree.
Yeah. And I really did. I ended a 30-year friendship on that because the person just insisted on continuing to dump on me. It actually got to the point where it created pain, which I was not expecting. But it actually created psychic pain in me to the point where I could barely even tolerate talking to that person. So I ended it.
You mean that's kind of like all they did?
No, not at all.
Oh.
But if you do that often enough, it gets to the point where it literally, I didn't know this would happen. Louise actually warned me about it with this person shortly after she met this person. But what happens over time is, if you think of that as being kind of a little mini abuse, so to speak, because there is an abusiveness to it, right? When you're dumping on somebody else. So if you think of that as an abuse, any kind of abuse that you expose yourself to over time, or that someone else exposes you to over time, starts to add up. It starts to have a cumulative effect, which I didn't realize, but it does have a cumulative effect. And over time, you can actually reach the point where you become saturated with it, where literally you've reached your limit. Like the barrel is ready to overflow with whatever's in it, just because it's so full. And that's what what happened to me. That's what I reached. I reached the point of no return, where I just couldn't tolerate anymore. And when you get to that point, I don't know how to explain it, David, but it's extremely painful. Far more painful. I mean, I actually now understand why Chinese water torture works. I mean, not that I advocate it, but I understand now why it's so effective. You know, you do it often enough, you get exposed to that often enough, you actually reach the point where you have searing pain, mind-numbing pain that just penetrates to your very being. So, yeah, I'm rather intolerant to people who dump on others.
But what do you think about that premise of what you're thinking about is planning the future?
I think it's true.
Yeah.
And that's another reason not to dump on somebody. I mean, literally, because you're not just hurting the other person that you're dumping on, you're hurting yourself. You're basically telling you have some bad thing or some bad experience or maybe a collection of bad experiences that made you feel angry or frustrated or depressed or enraged or something. And so what do? You basically tell somebody else about it. That's the dumping part, right? Which means you're living it again. And then maybe you tell somebody else about it, and now you're living it again. So you're reinforcing it over and over and over again. You're telling the same negative story over and over, which is, I mean, we've been talking about this in the book. That's basically setting yourself up for disaster. You just, cause the more you tell that same story.
That or whatever you're telling yourself that is more negative, that's what you're going to continue to attract.
Yeah.
And not only that, we also know that like thoughts attract like thoughts. So the more someone focuses on what they don't want or something negative, the more those type of thoughts are going to come in.
Interesting thing happened, by the way, when I cut ties with that person I mentioned. From that point on, my ability to focus improved tremendously, to the point where I was focusing a lot more often. I would say the vast majority of the time throughout my day, I was focusing on positives, focusing on things that I liked, focusing on the stuff I really wanted to have in my life, feeling so much better as a result.
Wow. Well, it's good you did that then.
And I also have to give myself a little credit because of the way I ended that relationship. Because I did what Abraham recommends. Abraham recommends that if you're going to end a relationship, you do it in a way that leaves the other person in the best place you can leave them.
So how did you do it? So what does that mean?
Well, I can't give you, without going into the details of what happened, and I really don't want to do that, partly because I don't want to relive it. But in general, I basically said, I have to end this, and the reason I have to end it is because of me. I mean, I have a mental thing going on that I don't want to get into, which was true. I mean, I was basically suffering from the replaying of all this negativity that had been dumped on me. But I didn't say that. I didn't accuse him of anything. I didn't do anything. I basically said, I'm sorry, I have to end this. This is me. It's a mental health issue for me. I have to move on. And I wish you the best and good luck to you, but I have to go in a separate direction and ask that we not stay in contact. And that's all I said.
And I admire that you didn't just disappear. You know, some people would just
no.
kind of and I admire that you did that. I think that's a very adult way of doing that.
Well, you can't really do the Abraham method unless you do it that way. I mean, you can't just doing the disappearing act doesn't actually do what Abraham had in mind. Right?
I don't think so.
I mean, because Abraham says very clearly that you have to make the break in as positive a way as you can. Well, just disappearing off the face of the earth doesn't really fit the category of positive. It's actually kind of rude, really.
Yeah, no, in that situation, yeah.
I mean, I can conceive of the idea that there might be situations for somebody else where, like, for instance, if you live in not only an abusive home, but a home where one spouse beats on the other, that's a case where you really don't want to spend a whole lot of time saying goodbye.
Yeah, if there's someone very toxic in your life, you're just like thinking to yourself, okay, this is enough. I'm not going to.
Well, this person was toxic too. It isn't so much the toxicity, although that certainly is a factor. It's what is the risk to yourself, the personal physical risk to yourself to be in that same place. If there's a physical risk, then no, you shouldn't be there. No, you shouldn't. I mean, do it by mail, do it by email, do it, something like that. But don't do it in person, and don't do it over the phone or something like that. Don't give them an opportunity to beat on you some more. Now, I didn't have that situation here at all, but for somebody who's like that,
did the other person, like, did they at least acknowledge that, like, were they appreciative that you at least did that instead of disappearing, kind of, or not really?
Well, I couldn't completely disconnect just because we had certain business interests. I'll put it that way, in common, so I had to kind of keep that going in a sense.
Oh, okay.
So I restricted our. We do have communication, but it's by email only. And anytime this person tries to engage me on a personal basis, I just ignore it. I just skip that and just deal with the business part of it. So I'm not sure that my case is adequate for your question.
Yeah. Well, on some level, they must have been, because even though that's not great to hear, at least you were honest.
Well, this person has continuously tried to refan the former friendship in numerous ways, and quite skillfully, I might add. But I refuse to engage. That's the other thing. You get to choose if you're going to engage. People don't often realize that,
Absolutely.
And yet it's key, because whether or not you're going to engage is really going to be the determining factor as to what's going to happen. Is the relationship going to continue? In this case, relationship has continued on a strictly business basis and definitely at arm's length. That's about the extent of it. And even that won't last forever. That'll last for some period of time.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I just thought it was a good quote, because why not? Yeah. Why not choose to focus on what we want?
Well, exactly right.
We get the future we want.
Yeah, I needed to change my focus, so I did. I changed it dramatically, and I tried to do it in a way that it was as positive as I could. But I haven't looked back. I mean, I almost never think about that situation anymore. The only time I ever think about it is like when I'm doing a podcast and my co-host is asking me about it. But other than that, I just don't even think about it. I am not at the point yet where I feel like I am in total control of my point of attraction at all times. I am a lot better at it than I used to be, but I don't feel like I'm really there yet. So I feel like I'm still practicing. I feel like I'm still learning it. I feel like I'm still getting better at it. I mean, is that what happens with you? Where do you feel you're at in terms of your personal development?
Yeah, I mean, it's always my intention to be, but we're human, so I don't think it matters who you are. There's always going to be a time where you have to refocus. Maybe you're realizing your mind suddenly is thinking about something. You're like, wait a minute.
and that's why I think that's why I think your quote is so valuable, the one that you read from Abraham. Because it's a reminder that every moment of every day is a time to kind of check ourselves and say, which way do I want to be? Do I want to be a default creator, or do I want to be a deliberate creator? And if I want to be a deliberate creator, what am I going to choose to focus on? Because that's making my tomorrow.
That's right. And it's kind of like what you just brought up, that even when you're realizing you're focusing on something you don't want, realize it and then refocus.
Right.
Like that's okay. It's okay.
Exactly.
But the key is to refocus.
Yes.
Like, oh, wait a minute. Like, it's kind of realized, like, wait a minute. Warning. What do I want? Oh, okay. No, I want this to go this way, and I want this, and I want that. And it's just taking that step that's important to refocus them. Just consciously refocus.
I also told a story, both podcasts on Friday, that happened to me early Friday morning. Was it Friday? Yeah, I think it was Friday. Early Friday morning. There was another person in my life who I'd been wanting this person to do something that I really needed them to do. They were really the only person who could do it. It was not something that would take them hours and hours to do. It would be very, very quick. But they just kept putting it off. And it was really important to get it done. And so I woke up and I was making myself some breakfast, making some eggs, standing at the stove there. And you know how it is early in the morning, the day is just getting started and you don't have all of the negative baggage necessarily flowing through you already because you just woke up. You know, there hasn't been enough time for it to be flowing through you, unless you're already in a really depressed state before you went to bed and you took that with you when you woke up. But I wasn't there. I was in a pretty good state. And I'm thinking to myself,
Right.
you know, I'd really like it if that person would get that one task done today. I mean, it won't take that person long, but you know, that person, they just keep putting it off. It'd be really great if they would just get it done. Like for a moment, I allowed myself to just kind of get excited about it. And do you know, within 1 minute of that, I got a phone call from them saying, "Hey, you know that thing you wanted me to do? I just finished it."
Oh my goodness!
Can you believe that?
That's wonderful. I can.
Within a minute. I mean, I talk about fast action.
I can, and the weirdest thing is my mind was thinking. You said you were making eggs. I want to know, like, were they scrambled eggs or something set up? What kind
You and food. I can always count on you where food is concerned. Yeah, they were over hard, actually. Over hard with pancake. How about that?
Oh, that sounds good. I was gonna say, so with pancakes. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Did it come out good?
Yeah, it did.
All right.
He doesn't even care about what happened with the phone call. He's more interested in the food.
But my mind, as soon as you said that, I thought, wait a minute, what kind of eggs is it? What did he serve with it?
If I survive you, David, I'm going to go to your memorial service and I'm going to say, you know what I loved the most about David? It was all about the food.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. No, but the reason why I say I do believe it happened that fast is because I've also experienced similar things like that, where boom, within a few minutes, whatever it was I was needing help with or wanting happened, and I'm like, wow. So that's why I say I believe it.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly an example of how quickly the universe really does like to act, to respond to our requests. Because so often we fall into the trap of believing that, well, it hasn't shown up, it's taking forever, I guess I got to be patient. And even then, I'm not so sure. And it could take hours and days and weeks and months and years for it to show up. Well, not necessarily. The only thing that's stopping us really is our own resistance, our own disbelief.
Yes.
And here I was in that one day. I mean, I didn't have any sense of disbelief. I was just like, I feel good. Let's try it. No thought. There was no time for angst. That's a good name for a show, don't you think? No time for angst. There was no time for angst. We just kind of, felt it, did it, put it out there, and boom, it showed up. Like, whoa, that was quick.
Yes. It's interesting because a lot of times people will tell me they manifested something when they just didn't care. It reached a point where just like, whatever. And then at that point, when they let go of the resistance, suddenly whatever it was happened.
And that's the nice thing about morning. I mean, morning is a great time because it's about your lowest resistance point of the day, really.
Yes, as soon as you wake up.
Yeah.
So
it's a good time to do it. Who knew?
That's great. No. I love hearing stories like that. It's just more proof.
It's proof and it's reinforcement. I mean, it's not scientific proof, but it's the kind of proof that makes you feel better about it. It makes you feel like, this really does work the way we're believing and talking and thinking and so forth. It really does play this way. We need that. We need that as human beings. We need like the soul nourishment, so to speak, that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. And on top of it, your breakfast came out good. So it was a great morning.
I can always count on you to have your priorities straight.
So you had a double win that morning.
I did. I had a double win with maple syrup.
Your task get done.
By the way, I do want to let you know I only use real maple syrup. I don't use that corn syrup junk.
That is fantastic. Yes.
Interesting story about that. Now, this really doesn't have a lot to do with anything law of attraction, but I thought I'd mention it. I don't even know why. I looked up something. I never look up calorie counts or anything like that. I just never pay attention to that. But for some reason recently, I think it was due to a podcast I did, maybe with Wendy, I'm not sure. But I decided to look up, because I was getting ready to make breakfast, and I was thinking to myself, I have pancakes fairly often. I normally don't worry about that, and because I don't worry about it, it works out just fine. But the conventional wisdom is you don't want to have too many calories in your daily diet and so forth. I wonder how much I add to my daily caloric intake by having pancakes. And so I looked it up, and found a web page that says, well, it's about 500 calories. I said, dang, that's a lot. And then I looked closer, and the 500 calories was if you used, the corn syrup version of maple syrup.
Yeah.
It turns out, and they're expecting you're going to use about a quarter cup of that. If you use a quarter cup of real maple syrup, the kind that comes out of the tree and gets boiled down and so forth, 500 drops to 200.
Wow.
And I don't even use a quarter cup. I use maybe half that amount. So for me, it's about 100. So
Yeah,
what was a 500?
So
what was a 500 calorie meal became a 100 calorie meal.
Yay!
So once again, I felt like, okay, great. I don't have to worry about this stuff.
Yes, and real maple syrup is actually good for us. And
yeah, it's a whole lot better than the corn
If I
syrup.
happen to go somewhere, I always say, "Do you have the real maple syrup?" And what's weird is now they're charging extra for it. I'm like, really? It's like,
honest to God, Louise and
I
have had a history of bringing our own real maple syrup when we go to a restaurant.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Because there are so many restaurants.
Idea.
Yeah, if you're going out for breakfast, we bring our own because 9 times out of 10 they don't have it. 9 times out of the 10 they're serving the corn syrup. I
just had this vision of your pancakes coming. You kind of look both ways, make sure no one's looking, and pull out your flask of maple syrup and quickly put it out.
we act like drug dealers. You got the stuff.
Exactly. Do you remember to bring the goods? Got the goods. But it's true, and they charge extra. Like,
I know, that's crazy, isn't it?
But that is good. That is good. I mean, the real maple syrup is, and it makes it different. Because my favorite is like blueberry buckwheat pancake. And I love that with the real maple syrup. It's delicious.
Yeah, we don't make the buckwheat, but we definitely do the blueberries, real blueberries. Oh yeah.
Yes. Now it's interesting you brought up food because
I brought a food. What do you mean I brought a food?
No, you brought up you said you were making eggs. You brought up food.
Yeah, sure. You're just trying to point the finger so that we can distract from the fact that you're the food man on the show.
But remember when we read from the book we're reading in now, that whole chapter about, being overweight and trying to lose weight.
Oh, and, 1,000 tubs of ice cream or whatever it was? Yeah.
Right, yeah, and I said, oh, poor ice cream is being used as an example. But I learned a lot from that chapter, and since then, I have been telling myself, like, whenever I eat anything, I'm like, oh, this is so nourishing for me, and this is fortifying my body, and it's helping my metabolism, and I just look fantastic, and because I have about, 15, 20 pounds I'd like to lose. But since we read that chapter, which by now was probably like a month ago?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
So I've totally changed how I think about food and how I think about food. Yeah, and how I think about food while I'm eating it.
Well, given how often you think about food, I'm glad that you're doing that. You might as well think about it the right way. I mean,
but it's true because it really made me aware. Like, wow, like I am one of those people that would think, oh, I'm eating so many calories. My God, this could make me so heavy. You see what I'm saying? Like I would tell myself things like that. And so since we read that chapter, I've really been consciously improving how I think about food while I'm eating it, and just telling myself much more positive things. And someone this past week saw me that hadn't seen me in about a month, and she said, oh my God, David, you look great. You've lost a bunch of weight.
Very nice.
Yeah, she was like, oh, what are you doing? And I thought to myself, that's really interesting because I don't know if I've lost a bunch of weight, but I think it's just because of what I've been telling myself with the food is making a difference. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Sure. It makes sense to me. I mean, especially based on what we're learning in this book.
I know. So I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. Like I've just been telling myself when I eat whatever, oh, this is nourishing for my body, and it's just so healthy, and it's making my metabolism even faster, and I'm burning up all kinds of fat, and I'm just at my goal weight, and all that good stuff. And then when she said that to me, I thought that's really interesting.
I haven't
changed the way I thought about it.
Most of my life, I haven't really paid much of attention to food. I mean, I just ate it, enjoyed it. That was about it. It was only in the last 10 years or so that I became aware of food in terms of, oh, geez, I should be paying attention and so forth. And, of course, that's when I put whatever weight on that I had. Before that, I was thin as a rail.
Right.
Now I actually have like 5 or 10 pounds, So I need to lose that at some point. And my approach has been, I don't really think about food a whole lot differently from what I used to when I was younger. I think about it a little bit differently, and I'm trying to kind of get back to the way I did think about it back then. And one of the ways I'm trying to get there is I realized I kind of adopted a bad habit, which is I didn't want to leave any food on the plate. It's really not a good habit at all. And so I would, kind of force myself to eat the last few bites that I really didn't need. Well, I'm trying to practice, and I've been doing this for the last couple of years or so, but trying to practice, I don't have to just finish what's there. I can just leave stuff. It's okay to do that.
It is okay.
Now,
does that stem from, like, a friend of mine, when they were little, their mother always told them if they don't finish what's on their plate, they can't have dessert. So they would always finish what was on their plate so they could have dessert. Like, do you think that's what that's from?
Well, there might have been a little bit, but I think it's more about being the son of a Depression-era person or people. Both of my parents grew up in the Depression. And when you're a child of a Depression-era parent, you learn to think scarcely.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
yeah,
you don't waste things. You don't leave the lights on. You don't you don't do all these things because you could run out of money. You could run out of resources. It's all so precious, and it's also exhausting to follow that kind of lifestyle. But that's basically, I think, what I learned. So that when it came time to dealing with food, I learned throughout my adult life, and not so much in my youth, but more in my adult life, that if there wasn't enough money, if there wasn't enough around, we're wondering how we're going to get through the month or whatever. Well, I can't leave anything on the plate. It was scarcity mentality. Yes.
So does it still feel funny for you to leave something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's dying hard. It's not going away easily, but it's getting easier.
Right.
I mean, we had steak tonight. You always like to have the high vibration food stories. Well, we had a delicious steak tonight, and I actually did something I don't normally do. I left steak on the plate. It was really good too, and I left some on the plate because I didn't need it.
Yes. That's interesting. I mean, even with the food thing, there's a couple I know, and husband and wife, and he's very thin. And whenever we've gone out to eat, I notice he just eats whatever he wants. He's one of those, he can.
That was me too.
And yeah, and he's now how old? He's in his 50s, and and we talk about law of attraction a lot. And I was telling them about that chapter with the food and all that kind of thing. And his wife said, "Oh, no wonder why he's thin, because he doesn't even think anything about it. He's just like, oh, cake, yay, let me have that cake," or whatever it is. Like, he doesn't eat thinking, "Oh, I shouldn't be eating this," or anything like that. So I thought that was very interesting. Again, like another kind of example, like he has zero resistance about whatever he's eating. He's just like, "Oh, I want that. It's good. Let me have it."
The other thing that I noticed that I've started to pick up later in life, and it's something I'm still trying to unpick up, so to speak, is I started learning the bad habit of eating in order to feel better.
Like comfort food, that kind of thing.
There are a lot of people who will, they're not feeling good, so they'll eat in order to feel better.
Yes.
And a lot of them are overweight. Well, I'm trying to unlearn that habit. It's not a habit that I've had all my life. It's something I learned within the last 10 years or so. And I'm really realizing, boy, oh boy, I want to recognize when I have that feeling so that I can say, no, thank you.
Now, how did you realize you were doing that?
Because Wendy and I have been talking about the same topic for a number of weeks in May in particular. Right. And in the course of talking about that topic, one of the things that she mentioned was that she had stopped doing that very thing. She had stopped herself from eating just because she wasn't feeling good, or she needed to feel better, or she was depressed, or she was sad, or she was angry, or whatever. Eating food is a way of stuffing the anger, as my wife would put it.
like the cliche thing of rushing to your freezer to get the ice cream.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't take it out of the gallon. You bring the gallon to the couch. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can't say I've never done that. I can't say I've ever gone
well,
that
I mean, the
far.
cliche thing that people,
Yeah.
like on a lot of TV shows, like he broke up with me, and you see her like running to the freezer, and she gets the whole thing of ice cream and brings it to the
Right.
to the
Yeah.
couch. Yeah.
I gotta mention. No, I'm not going to mention that one because that's more negative. I'm going to stay away from negative. So let's get on to the positive.
Okay, but that's interesting. That's great that you realize that, because then, of course, once you realize it, now you can start practicing leaving some food and being okay with it.
And well, not just leaving food, also not allowing myself to go get food unless I'm feeling really up.
Oh, that's what the comfort food thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's really about that more than anything else, I think. And so I'm learning, and there have been times where I've walked to that kitchen, had a little fight with myself, and walk out, and walk back in, walk back out. I've done that a few times, and most times I've won. Most of the times I haven't given in to the urge.
Right, like to have whatever.
But I'm recognizing that it's there, and I don't think I've still completely uprooted why I'm doing that. I mean, I know in general because I'm trying to stuff some sort of pain or frustration or depression or something. But I haven't truly rooted it out yet. But I will eventually.
Now, was it like typically with a dessert that you would do it, or anything?
Oh, it could be almost anything.
Right.
I mean, if I don't do it with a dessert, then I can justify it, right? I can justify say, oh, well, I'm not eating sugar, so it's okay. Which is the last thing I want to do. Because the one thing I want to say is, no, I don't really need the food. Go away.
Right. Yeah, and especially now that you're aware of it, you can just tell yourself, no, I'm not gonna have that right now. I'm just gonna go back
and I'm doing it majority of the time. I don't do it every time. I haven't gotten to that point of a high degree of precision yet, but I catch myself a majority of the time now, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. So where are we in this? What chapter are we on now?
Well, last week we started on example 13 in part 2, entitled "I Cannot Find a Mate," and it's a very long example that they've got. There's a lot of stuff in it. We got about halfway through it, and then we got caught up in all we were talking about as a result of it. But what do you say? Should we try to get through the rest of it?
Well, we finished the chapter. We finished it.
Did we finish it?
Yeah.
Oh wait, you're right. We did do the upstream and downstream thoughts?
We had the thing where we had Jill on, and then we finished.
No, Jill was 2 weeks. Jill was 2 weeks ago, wasn't she?
Yes, and last week we finished it. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But I really liked the information in that as well.
It was very good.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great when they said, even if you're on a date with someone that you're not crazy about, still enjoy the date.
Yes, I remember that. That was a big part of our conversation last week.
And I thought, wow,
that's really good.
That is so good. It is
very important.
So good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then in that case, let's go on to example 14, which is also, I mean, all these examples are kind of unhappy topics because that's what they're doing. They're addressing unhappy topics. But this one is entitled, "My sister and I are not speaking to each other."
All right, go for it.
It's an interesting topic because for some people that'd be a good thing, and for other people that would be a bad thing. It just depends on who it is.
That's interesting, right? I didn't think of it that way yet. But we'll see how they propose it here.
See, it's all dependent upon your perspective. What's your perspective in life? If your perspective is one way, then you feel one way. If your perspective is another way, you feel a different way. It just depends on your perspective.
Someone could read that and think, thank God.
Yeah, right, exactly. What took her so long, right?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. All right.
So anyway, here's what they're raising as a problem. This is a sort of, all these problems are based on the various questions they've gotten from the workshop. So this is like an amalgamated question. But the way they worded it here is, "My sister and I had an argument over a year ago, and we haven't spoken to one another since. Sometimes I think I should just pick up the phone and call her, but then I remember how angry she made me when we last talked a year ago. Wow. And I don't want to take a chance of going back to those angry feelings again. I don't feel good about not talking to her, but it feels a lot better than how I felt back then. She started the argument, and then she wouldn't even try to understand my point of view. She's always been stubborn. She always thinks that she's right, and I've always given in to her just to keep the peace. But I'm tired of having to be the one who gives in, so I just don't call her."
Well, I think everybody can relate to that in some way.
If not with a sister, with something else, with another person.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah. Yep. All right, sorry, go ahead.
All right, so here is what Abraham answers. And, one thing we could have done last week that I'm going to suggest we do this week. Well, they don't really have it in dialogue format. I was going to see if we could find a way to do the dialogue. I'll tell you what, when it comes to the parts where they have us saying, here's what you could say, or here's the upstream, or here's the downstream, or anything that's broken out in italics, that kind of thing. Why don't you read that section, and I'll read the other section.
Okay.
That sound good? All right.
Sounds good.
So Abraham replies, most people want to be loved. I think you can replace that with all people.
Yeah.
They want to be appreciated, and they want to be understood. But the trouble with those desires is that you cannot control whether someone else appreciates, or loves, or understands. We have noticed that it feels every bit as good to love or appreciate or understand as it does to be loved or appreciated or understood. And the most interesting thing about that is you have complete control over that. You have the ability to love someone just because you have decided that you want to. And while what they have done may have upset you so much that you do not feel you even want to try to love them, we want you to understand that unless you do love them, you will hold yourself out of vibrational alignment with yourself because, like it or not, your inner being does love them.
Wow, that could be hard to hear if you're really embroiled.
Right? Yeah. But it's worth hearing. It's good information.
Absolutely, yes.
And since they are the subject of your thoughts, and since you feel horrible when you focus upon them, you blame them for the horrible way you feel. And that is reason enough to stay mad at them, for they seem to be the reason you feel so awful. If they would be different, you would feel better. But since they refuse to be different, you think you can't feel better. So they seem to hold the power over the way you feel. No matter you are mad at them, you have given them your
No wonder you are.
Oh, yes, no wonder, yes. No wonder you are mad at them. You have given them your most prized possession, the key to your own power. Boy, is that the case. That's happened so often. Oh, jeez.
Oh,
we give away our power so easily and so many times, and then we defend it. We defend it, David. That's the part that gets me. We go out of our way. Well, it's all, he did this, she did this, they did this, they made me feel this way. They did that to me.
Right.
They did it. It's them. Right. They did it. They did it. Them over there. They did it.
Yep.
Boy, oh boy. Sometimes I wonder how it is we survive. But anyway, even if the hurt from a relationship reaches far back into your childhood, you can, with far less effort than you might think, bring yourself into alignment.
You skipped a paragraph.
Did I?
When start from when you remember.
Oh, did I skip that one? Okay, yeah, I guess I did. Sorry, folks. Just rewind that.
I just bring it up because I kind of read the first sentence like, ooh, that's important.
It's a good sentence, right? You didn't want me to skip that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for David, when you remember that you can control the way you feel, no matter what, you can regain your own power, and then you can come back into alignment with who you really are. And when
that's huge.
It is huge.
That is.
Yeah.
That we control how we feel. It's not somebody else.
It's hard to swallow at first.
Yes.
But once you swallow it, so to speak, once you accept it, it makes a whole lot of things that are confusing suddenly make a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean?
Wow. Totally. Yes. It's very adult-like to really.
Well, it is, yeah.
Accept that.
It's adult-like, but more than that, it's empowering. I mean, that's what they were really referring to in the previous passage. How when you give away your power, you give away your most prized possession.
That's right.
Which is true.
Right.
And it says, and when you are in alignment with who you really are, it is easier to put their actions, words, and attitudes into the proper perspective. Those things are not your business. I like what Wendy's phrase for that is. She says it's staying in her own lane. That's what she calls it. Even their thoughts about you are not your business. Now, there's a tough thought for people. Even their thoughts about you are not your business.
That's right. Yeah, there's that famous saying, it's none of my business what you think about me. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes along with that.
Well, there's a famous American cliche along that lines. I may disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
Yeah, I love that. Even if their thoughts about you are not your business.
Mm-hmm. They are. And that's a very, very challenging thing. It's empowering once we decide that it's true and take it on board. It's incredibly empowering because now it turns out once you take that on board, now no one can control you anymore other than you.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
But
Very
now all of a
freeing.
sudden, all the people who are trying to manipulate you, their manipulations don't work anymore. Because what they think is none of your business. Even if it's about you, it's still none of your business. Now, did I say that it was easy to put that into practice? No. Fortunately, I didn't say that because I can't say it's easy to put into practice. I found it to be kind of challenging to put into practice. But nevertheless, when I do successfully put it into practice, I get amazing results. I imagine you do too.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a great reminder.
Yes, it is. Okay, let's see. Those things are not your business. Even their thoughts about you are not your business. Even if the hurt from a relationship reaches far back into your childhood, you can with far less effort than you might think. Did I read this?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I'm having deja vu moments. That's what's going on here, David. Okay.
I guess.
Even if the hurt from a relationship reaches far back into your childhood, you can, with far less effort than you might think, bring yourself into alignment because you do not have to go back in time and rethink everything and sort it all out and find remedies and solutions. Your pain then and now is always about only one thing, your now vibrations, caused by what you are thinking right now and how those vibrations relate to the vibrations of your inner being and who that part of you has become. You are one who loves, and when for whatever reason you do not love, you are tearing yourself apart.
Wow.
You know what that reminds me of? You know the Harry Potter series of books? That reminds me of Harry Potter's series, where Lord Voldemort tore his soul into pieces in order to create multiple versions of himself so he couldn't be killed.
Oh, wow.
But he tore himself apart. He tore himself apart. And he ended up destroying himself that way. Yeah. But you tear yourself apart when you do not love. That's true, by the way. Somebody posted a question on Facebook. They asked, and it was today. They said, I know it's not easy, but define love. And as soon as I saw it, it was very easy for me. I went to the comment section. I typed, love equals source energy.
Yes. Yes.
That's it. Source energy is love.
Did they know what you meant?
Probably not. Well, some of them did because it was law of attraction group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, love equals source energy. So essentially, if we translate what they just said here using the word source energy, I'll just do a replacement. Where it says love, I'll replace it with source energy. You are one who comes from source energy. And when, for whatever reason, you do not have source energy, you are tearing yourself apart. Boy, does that make sense.
Yes. Yep.
We understand that you feel justified in your anger or hatred, whether the subject of your discomfort is your sister, an evil dictator, or someone who loves you and left you. Oof. But no matter what, there is simply no justification for anything other than love and appreciation. Heavy.
Yeah.
The price you pay in your discord is far too great a price to pay. In our view, nothing justifies an upstream disconnection from self. And that's the first time they brought that concept in about upstream, downstream. When you don't love, you are paddling upstream. So when I'm not in a loving state, David, I'm paddling upstream.
So basically, no matter what someone says to you, but he did this, but she said that, but he, but she, but
if
he,
you
but
engage
she,
in it, when we engage in that, we're paddling upstream.
Right. Yeah. And if we can all remember in those moments that it's about us, it's about us.
I'm just realizing one of the most challenging times for me to remember that is when I'm in my role as one of the bosses at Louise's gardening service. We've got, I think she said we have 15 employees now. I got to count that up. But
right.
And she's first in command. I'm second in command. So I basically have all these people who I am in authority over, and which is really weird because I know nothing about gardening. Can you believe this? My skills
I
are
don't
are
know.
in all the business side of it. I don't know gardening at all. I mean, that's the person under me is the person who knows all about gardening. She's the general manager, and she needs to know all about it. But
Right, right.
but the bottom line is there have been times where I've had conversations with people within the company, and I had to be in that position of authority. I had to do it. I had to play that role, which isn't
Mhm.
an easy role to play anyway. And it gets so easy to fall into the place of what they're talking about here, of being in an upstream place, and of not being in a loving place. And
Mhm.
anybody who's ever been in a position of authority and dealt with subordinates who were bucking you in some way, or bucking the system, or
Mhm.
creating problems of one sort or another, you really realize from that experience just how easy it is to fall out of alignment, to
Mhm.
fall out of the loving space. It's so easy to do
Oh
because
yeah.
you're in the authority position. You got to make things happen.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's boy. I'm still learning how much of a challenge that is.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is a good reminder for you,
It's a
though.
very good reminder, no doubt about it. So now that we've identified it as upstream, where do we go? It says, well, usually the more we try to get you to release your long-standing patterns of hatred for someone, well, I can't say I really hate anybody, but yes, I understand their point, the harder you cling to them. Also a very good point. Reaching for a more vivid justification for the way you feel. And that's what most people do.
Mhm.
Really, this is but a product of your discomfort with your disallowance. We should reread that one. Really, this is
Yeah.
but a product of your discomfort with your disallowance. So if we were
Mm.
to phrase that in positive, that's a double negative there, right? So let's put that in positive
Mhm.
phrase, okay? So if we put that in positive terms, how would you phrase that? I always have to do a little translation in my head.
Your
Well,
discomfort. Yeah.
certainly comfort is a product of allowance, so there's a way of making it a more positive statement. But they're also
Mhm.
talking in terms of when you react against somebody who you're feeling some powerful emotion about them, and not a positive one, a negative one. And they're saying the harder you cling to it, reaching for the more you do that, then the harder you cling, reaching for a more vivid justification for the way you feel. Really, this is but a product of your discomfort with your disallowance. So really, this is a product of not being comfortable with allowing. There is a way to say it more
Mhm.
positively.
Mhm.
This is a product of not being comfortable with allowing. In other words, when you have felt bad for a very long time and you associate that bad feeling with the behavior of another person, you take it very personally, and you usually feel extremely justified in your attitude. But all of this fury is because you innately understand that you should be feeling good. And when you do not feel good, you take it very, very hard. Isn't
Mm.
that true?
Yeah.
We really are our
Yeah.
own worst enemies in many ways. We beat ourselves up
Mhm.
so easily. We do. We're so
Wow.
good at that.
Mhm.
And it's a good cautionary tale to remind ourselves the fury, that anger, that the angst, whatever that negative emotion is that we're dealing with, is in part due to the fact we know we should be feeling good, and so we get hard on ourselves about it. When we do not feel
Mhm.
good, we take it very, very hard. Well, maybe we shouldn't take it so hard. Maybe we should give ourselves a little slack, saying, "Okay, so I missed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah. Be
stay there. I
easier
don't
with
want to live
yourself.
there for sure, but okay, I missed. Let it go."
Mhm. Mhm.
When you discover your ability to deliberately turn thoughts downstream, now we're getting to the good part, without any modifying of their behavior at all, you will discover the indescribable feeling of relief that only comes through the releasing of resistance. When
Mm.
this understanding of the power of your own mind, with this understanding of the power of your own mind, you will no longer be looking for someone to love you or appreciate you or understand you or soothe you, cater to you or help you, for you will then be fully connected to the resources of the universe. And in that connection, you will be completely fulfilled. And then such an
Mm.
interesting thing happens. In your connection with a vibration that is love and appreciation, you become one who is loved and appreciated by many. So begin where you are. David, this is your cue.
Ooh. Okay. So these are examples of
Right.
upstream or downstream thoughts. We'll find out. If my sister wants to talk to me, she can call me. I'm tired of always being the one who tries to make amends. I'm happier when I don't interact with her. Maintaining a good relationship with her is too much work.
I guess those were upstream. Those are fairly upstream
It
thoughts.
sounds like it, yeah.
So you are where you are. Many might argue that your sister doesn't deserve your love. But we are not encouraging this process because of your sister, but because you deserve to be in alignment with who you are. And if we were talking with your sister, we would tell her exactly the same thing. Do not come into alignment and discover the feelings of love and appreciation for your sister. Do it for yourself. While it certainly would be a wonderful world, this is all underlined in italics, so they're saying this is really important. While it certainly would be a wonderful world if everyone were to understand this and deliberately achieve vibrational alignment within themselves, it is not necessary for one other person to understand this in order for you to be joyful. For your happiness is dependent on no other. That's,
wow.
I should put that on a piece of paper because that's so true.
Yes, and I think we should end there tonight because we just have a few minutes. But that is a great place. Your happiness is dependent on no other.
We actually have about 3 minutes left, I think. Let's try to go through the positives because I don't want to end with all those negatives. Let's do the downstream thoughts. So why don't you read what the downstream thoughts are?
Okay. This anger has been weighing on me for a long time. It would be nice to be able to just let it go. I can't even remember the specifics of our disagreement. I'm sure now that it wasn't important. If I didn't love her, I probably wouldn't care so much what she thinks. Maybe I can love her regardless of what she thinks. I get it that I can't control how my sister thinks. I also get that it's possible to control my own thoughts. I can feel the freedom in really getting control of my own thoughts. I think I have always wanted that, and that's why I feel such anger when I don't control my thoughts. I guess it's time for me to stop trying to hold my sister responsible.
Let's see if we can finish this. I think we can do it. It says, when we want you to understand that we are not encouraging that you seek alignment and relief in order to then affect your actions. We are not trying to get you to call and make amends with your sister. It is our desire that you make amends with yourself and that you find a way to choose the kinds of thoughts that let you come into alignment with who you are. And then from that place of alignment, you may be inspired to action. It is always certain that from your place of alignment, your inspired action is always to your advantage, and that from your place of misalignment, your action is never to your advantage.
And here's more downstream thoughts. I feel so much better. I do love and appreciate my sister. Maybe I'll call her later or not. I don't have to decide right now.
Now that you are feeling better, do your best to maintain those good feelings by redirecting your thoughts whenever you slip away from feeling good. In time, these better feeling thoughts will become your normal thoughts regarding the subject, and by then, circumstances will begin to appear that move you happily to the next logical step. Sometimes once you get to feeling better, you want to immediately jump into action in order to bring others up to speed with you and the better feeling state that you have achieved. But it is best just to bask in the new and improved emotions for a while until they are truly stable within you. Then the law of attraction will take care of the rendezvousing with others and with the orchestrating of circumstances and events. Your work, your only work, is to find feelings of relief and therefore to come into alignment with who you really are and what you really want. See, David, we did it with a minute and a half to spare. How about that?
Yes, and it's so true.
It is true.
So true.
Yeah.
Wow.
And plus, we like to end on a high note anyway, because it always feels good.
Yeah.
By the way, while we do have a few seconds left, I want to remind people, if you're not yet a subscriber to the show, please do so. It's so easy. You should just go to the homepage, loatoday.net. The instructions are right there. It takes about a minute. It's free. And once you've done it, you get all of the episodes sent right to your smartphone, which is great. You can play them anytime you want. You can binge listen if you want to. We have binge listeners. Did you know that, David? I mean, it's great.
Yes. And if anybody wants some great law of attraction coaching, they can go to lifecoachdavid.com, and you can find out more about me and how to contact me through there.
And there you have it. David, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to picking up this book next week. What do you say? Shall we do it?
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
I am as well. We hope that you join us as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.